What if I told you that an army 5 times smaller didn't just survive, it completely shattered one of the most powerful empires on Earth? Not by luck. Not by chance. But by setting a trap so perfect that 40,000 soldiers walked into it without even realizing. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how Skanderbeg turned patience into a weapon and why this ambush still feels like a masterclass in strategy centuries later. By the mid-1400s, the Ottoman Empire was unstoppable. They had crushed kingdoms, absorbed territories, and even brought down Constantinople, one of the most fortified cities in the world. Their armies were massive, organized, and terrifyingly efficient. So when they marched into Albania with tens of thousands of troops, they weren't expecting resistance, they were expecting submission. This was supposed to be routine. But standing in their way was Skanderbeg, a commander who didn't just understand war, he understood the Ottoman mind. He had once served them, trained within their system, learned their habits, their strengths, and more importantly, their blind spots. That insider knowledge was about to become their biggest weakness. Instead of rushing into battle, Skanderbeg did something that looked like weakness. He pulled back. Again and again. He avoided direct confrontation, gave up ground, and let the Ottomans advance deeper into Albania. To an outside observer, it looked like he was losing. Like he was being pushed back step by step. But that's exactly what he wanted them to think. Because when an enemy believes they've already won, they stop being careful. They stop being sharp. And that's when they become vulnerable. The Ottomans began to stretch themselves thin. Their supply lines grew longer. Their troops became more relaxed. Camps became less disciplined. Soldiers who once marched in tight formations now spread out, confident that no real threat remained. Victory felt inevitable. But here's the turning point: Skanderbeg wasn't retreating. He was shaping the battlefield. He carefully selected the area around Albulena, a place with forests, hills, and uneven terrain that could hide entire units of soldiers. This wasn't random terrain, it was a natural weapon. It allowed his smaller force to disappear, to move unseen, to prepare without being detected. He divided his army into concealed positions, each one placed with precision, like pieces on a chessboard waiting for the right move. And then he waited. Not for a day. Not for a week. But for months. Think about that level of discipline. An army ready to strike, holding back, watching, studying, resisting the urge to attack too early. Skanderbeg knew that timing would decide everything. If he struck too soon, the Ottomans would still be alert. Too late, and the opportunity would vanish. So he observed. He watched their routines, their habits, their patterns. He waited for the exact moment when confidence turned into carelessness. And eventually, it did. The Ottoman army began to relax completely. Soldiers removed armor during rest. Guards became less vigilant. The sense of urgency faded. This was no longer a dangerous campaign, it was a slow, easy march to victory. That illusion was exactly what Skanderbeg had engineered. Then, on September 2, 1457, everything changed in an instant. At dawn, when visibility was low and alertness even lower, Skanderbeg launched his attack. Not from one direction but from multiple sides at once. His hidden forces emerged suddenly, crashing into the Ottoman camp before they could even organize themselves. There was no warning, no time to form ranks, no clear enemy line to face. Imagine waking up to chaos, shouts, steel, confusion everywhere, and enemies already inside your camp. That's what the Ottomans experienced. Panic spread faster than any command could control. Soldiers scrambled to grab weapons, but many were caught completely unprepared. Units couldn't form. Officers couldn't issue orders. And within minutes, the structure of the army began to collapse. But this wasn't just a wild attack, it was controlled chaos. Skanderbeg's forces didn't just charge blindly. They targeted the command structure, the leaders, the communication points. By disrupting leadership early, they ensured the Ottomans couldn't recover. It's like cutting the head off a snake, the body still moves, but without direction. And once confusion takes hold in an army that size, it spreads like fire. Men began to flee. Others fought without coordination. Entire sections of the army didn't even know what was happening. What should have been an overwhelming force turned into a disorganized crowd. And suddenly, those numbers 40,000 men became meaningless. Because numbers only matter when they're coordinated. Skanderbeg's 8,000 troops, on the other hand, were unified, focused, and perfectly timed. They knew the plan. They knew their roles. They moved like a single force, hitting where it hurt the most and pulling back where necessary. It wasn't just a battle, it was execution. By the time the Ottomans attempted to regroup, it was already too late. Their lines were broken, their commanders disrupted, and their morale shattered. Thousands were killed in the chaos. Thousands more fled the battlefield, abandoning what was supposed to be a guaranteed victory. And just like that, one of the most powerful armies in the world had been humiliated by a force 5 times smaller. But here's the deeper lesson, the one that goes beyond history. This wasn't about strength, it was about perception. Skanderbeg controlled what the Ottomans believed. He made them see weakness where there was strategy. He made them feel safe when they were actually in danger. He turned their confidence into a weapon against them. You see this pattern everywhere, even today. In business, when a smaller competitor outmaneuvers a giant by choosing the right moment. In sports, when a team wins not by brute force but by exploiting timing and positioning. Even in everyday life, where understanding someone's mindset can give you an edge far greater than raw power. The Battle of Albulena is a reminder that winning isn't about having more, it's about using what you have better than anyone expects. And that's what makes this ambush so legendary. Because it wasn't just a victory, it was a message. A statement that even the mightiest empire can fall into a trap if it stops thinking, if it underestimates its opponent, if it confuses silence with weakness. Skanderbeg didn't just defeat an army that day. He outthought an empire. And that's why, centuries later, this battle is still studied, still admired, and still incredibly relevant. In the end, Albulena proves that strategy beats strength when timing is perfect and deception is flawless. If you enjoyed this breakdown, check out the next story of an impossible victory and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it.